Blood Brothers podcast, a Five Pillars of Mad Monolith production.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers, sisters, and yes, even friends and foes. Actually, no, rewind, just foes as well. Welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers podcast with your brother and host Dilly Hussain and my co-host
Aki Hussain. Assalamu alaikum everyone.
And today we have a very special guest, and I mean this. He stands at a magnificent and beautified, God-given 6'6", and he's the one and only, the big friendly giant / debater / speaker's corner celebrity, and I maybe slash that word out, Mohammed Hijab.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother.
You're right.
That was a very elaborated introduction. Big privilege for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you stand at, by the way? 6 foot?
6'6".
6, yes.
Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Because you feel a bit squashed up there.
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah. No, I'm comfortable.
Look,
Alhamdulillah.
we're honoured that you've joined us
I'm
today.
very honoured.
No, honestly, you came onto our radar quite late. Like, I only started following your work around a year and a half ago, when some brothers forwarded some of your content from Speaker's Corner. However, I want to just posit to you the very first question of today's podcast.
Yeah.
We know mutual friends, people who were or still are prominent debaters or Muslim apologists, who used to frequent Speaker's Corner.
Hamza Zorsis and
Abdullah Andalusi and others, and they kind of moved away from it, right? As they became more mainstream, as they became more respectable, because there's this thing about Speaker's Corner, as lively, as entertaining as it may seem, it is, and it can become a jungle / circus.
yeah.
Since you've been going to the States and going to Oxford Uni, and by the way, I want to congratulate you on those great performances. May Allah accept it from you.
Ameen.
May Allah keep us all sincere and steadfast in His way.
Ameen.
Will you do the same? Are you going to abandon Speaker's Corner once you become the suited, booted Mr. Hijab?
I don't intend to.
Okay.
I don't intend to. I don't know what's going to happen. But the thing about speaking to people on the streets is very natural. It's a very natural thing to do, and I think it humbles people. It humbles me. Because you realize that just because you've gained some knowledge, or just because you've kind of maybe progressed academically, it doesn't mean now that you're going to be distancing yourself away from the people. And I think the prophets of Islam, in the Quran, Surah Al-Furqan, for example, it talks about they used to walk in the aswaq, in the marketplaces, and so the prophets didn't have that distance from the people in that way. And I think that is problematic sometimes, where we think that I'm not saying in the case of people who decided not to go to Speaker's Corner, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, that when we think that we've become too prestigious for a particular environment, there's no environment where Dawa doesn't reach. Whether it's a school or a playground or a Speaker's Corner or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think the contention with Speaker's Corner would not necessarily be that someone becomes too mainstream or become too prestigious to become a social. I think it's the general environment and how things can escalate.
Whether it's going to be a stain on their repertoire, or what they've now accumulated of experiences. Once you start filling auditoriums and you start lecturing at Oxford Uni, do you go back to
heckling, abrupt interjections, outright slander, name calling, this kind of very jungle-esque environment, right? And how fruitful Dawah discussions can be in that environment, number one. And number two, when you said the people, is Speaker's Corner really representative of the people? Or is it? Or
do you mean the audience that who access the Speaker's Corner videos?
I think a bit of both. I mean, I do agree that there's a high level of unpredictability, like when you go to Speaker's Corner, and things can escalate. But I think that's what makes people want to tune in a way. And also, I would think that is a way in which discoveries can be made. Like in Speaker's Corner, I've spoken to people from different backgrounds. I would never have known these ideas. And it's unpredictable for both of us, both me and the audience members. I mean, I'm not coming in there scripted, and I think sometimes people want to see that kind of natural, it's almost like a reality show, but then we can give Dawah in that context. And I do agree that there's always going to be drawbacks to Speaker's Corner, and that's why I try and limit the interactions there. Don't be too predictable in the times that you go to Speaker's Corner and things like that. But I think since the Speaker's Corner in that ironic way has allowed us to fill the auditoriums up in the first place, So it should be continued. Like,
okay.
So I don't know.
So you won't be abandoning it in the near future once you become.
Not totally abandoning it. I don't think there's any need for that.
Will it be more a case of that you like to become busy yourself in other areas and other activities and projects where you're not able to maybe spend frequent as much as you previously did?
Yeah, I think it'll be more like that.
If I could ask you a question, Mohammed Hijab, how often, if ever, whether recorded or off camera, in Speaker's Corner, have you been, surprised pleasantly that this is quite a refreshing argument, and this has really put me in a situation where I've had to go back and really refine some of my positions and how I present Islam?
And not that many times. I know it sounds quite. I don't know how that sounds actually too, but
arrogant.
Yeah, maybe arrogant, right? Egotistical, I don't know, sanctimonious. But I think that generally, I hear the same kinds of things being. The amount of repetition that one hears from not only the general public but Speaker's Corner frequenters is astonishing. The criticisms people have of Islam are the same recycled ones. The attacks people have of Prophet Muhammad are the same recycled ones. So when someone approaches me, usually they're trying to criticize Islam, or they have one of those interrogations that they want to put forward that they think is going to, break the camel's back or something, but it's not. So a lot of the time, it's not something I need to go and research anything about, because I know what you're trying to say now, and I've heard it 100 times before. But there are some times where some people come to Speaker's Corner and they have good ideas, but really and truly where good ideas are kind of sought, or ought to be sought in a way, are in places where knowledge production is made, which is universities and masajid.
Places purpose-built for producing people
So
to think.
to be honest, I don't go to Speaker's Corner to learn anything. The only thing it helps me to teach me is how to control my emotions, and even that I'm not claiming to be any kind of expert on it. So I think it's more to do with human interaction and socializing. That's what you really learn. You're not going to learn arguments.
Add to something that Hijab said. So how do you take yourself from a situation and a stage of public interaction, debating, like Speaker's Corner, where you're not really impressed, you've heard the thing over and over again, you see the same person again, saying the same things, and you've nailed them. You've nailed those conversations in your head, and you've digested them, and you know that if it was to come blindfolded, I'd have it. How do you now motivate yourself, inspire yourself, and take yourself to a place now, and into waters where you really have to start exploring new arguments that are more sophisticated?
Well,
when you could just revel in the joy of being a 6'6" tower of a machine, just refuting these stupid arguments by angry white people.
I think what it is for me is, like, I've always had a passion for learning, right? So learning has always happened in the background, and Speaker's Corner is a place where I can kind of present that learning in a way. So I think it's an interesting place to do it, because I used to work as a teacher, right? And it's difficult to gauge people's interest. It really is difficult to gauge people's interest.
Students, you mean?
Students' interest, yeah. So, we were told when we were doing the training that, you have to do certain things like keep it student-centered, you have to activities and lots of things like that. And to be honest, Speaker's Corner is a way in which I try and think about, okay, what do I actually think about this sometimes. Okay, I'm speaking to this person in front of me. What do I want to teach the people at home? Is there something about the religion of Islam in particular? So I teach through debates, I teach through interactions, because I know if I did the same lesson in a masjid, right, delivering the same exact arguments, people would not be as interested.
So you're actually engaging with people on camera whilst trying to actually teach the audience and the viewers?
Yes.
As opposed to perhaps at times, as you've insinuated, having sometimes repetitive debates with even sometimes the same people, but really it's the audience and the viewers.
Absolutely. Yeah, so for example...
Sort of like getting the message out.
Right, so I've got lesson plans in my head, right, if you like, Okay, so for example...
My God.
Yeah.
lesson plan.
He's a teacher.
Yeah, right.
This guy.
Yeah, but that's how I think of things. Okay, so this is today we're going to talk about, let's say, for instance, let's talk about... I don't know, the Trinity or something.
Yeah. Okay. Liberal morality or something.
Oh, yeah, for example, perfect. Liberal morality.
Yeah.
I want to talk to people about, social contract theory, right? So let me choose someone who thinks they know something about liberalism, as I have done in the park. Let's talk to them about that, and make it seem as if they're the protagonist or the antagonist, whatever it is. Make a story out of it.
You go find them.
I find them or they find me. It happens one way or another. I've got the lesson plans in my head already, right? So if they
Usually the class.
yeah, no, I'm
You
ready
the
for
class
it.
now,
No, the class is online, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And sometimes they come into the park as well.
Yeah.
So okay, I got 20 minutes. Because really and truly, how long is a lesson? 45 minutes,
Yeah.
right? That's how long it should be. I mean, usually sometimes in the school that I was working it was actually 2 hours, but let's say a 45-minute lesson, 20-minute lesson, you can still learn good from that. You know, what do we want to teach? Lesson objectives. You want to teach people about social contract theory, its correlations, or how it connects with Islamic thing, fiqh or whatever. Let's choose someone to make an argument with. He'll be the antagonist. I'll be the protagonist. People like Hatun and people in the park, like Hatun and Daniel and those people.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job for us. They're helping us because Sarah, Kalam, all of those individuals, they're actually helping us because everyone loves a story, everyone loves a good guy and a bad guy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of
They
course.
just make us into good guys. It's like WWE. Thank you very much. This is exactly what I would have paid someone to pretend to do that what you're doing. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I would have paid
absolutely.
say be rude to me, try to humiliate me, you know. And I'll respond to it in different ways to entertain the audience, but also to teach them a few things about Islam. At the end of the day, who's winning from that? They're not winning from that. You know, on social media, they're having limited success, and they're not teaching anyone, and no one's becoming Christian or pantheist.
So that's a metric for some degree of success.
Yes, No, so we actually look at this. We look at it very carefully. If there was someone in Speaker's Corner who was benefiting from us in the same way as we're benefiting from those individuals, then we wouldn't go Speaker's Corner. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So it's all about masalah and mafasad, like, you know, the pros and the cons, if you like, you know, the community benefits, the interest. So because we have been able to gauge that actually from a metric, if you like, system, we have been the beneficiaries of this, you know, and we certainly have. In the UK Dawa, a lot of it was built in Speaker's Corner, and there's no doubt about that. Abdurrahim Green, Hamza Sources, Adnan Rashid, what do you call it, Abdullah Andalusi, many names.
The household names all came from
Speaker's Corner.
Yes.
Who's been the beneficiary? For the last 20 years, we have been the beneficiaries of Speaker's Corner.
Yes.
Organizations have been built on the back of Speaker's Corner, right?
Okay, without going into this is something I've actually wanted to ask you now, because things are now starting to change in Speaker's Corner, because this was something which, let's be honest about it, was traditionally dominated by Salafi-esque kind of background speakers and du'at and da'is, but things are changing now. I'm noticing individuals from Shia backgrounds, individuals who are coming from a Sufi/Barelvi backgrounds are now attending Speaker's Corner where they have never ever been present. Do you think that's also as a reaction to the presence of what's been the case for the last 15-20 years?
I don't know of many Barelvi people, scholars or anyone going there. I don't know that many. Maybe one or two.
I've seen a few now floating about in Speaker's Corner.
Shias, there's the known faces that go there. They're not doing a good job representing themselves.
But mate, his name, is it Pokemon Blade Runner? What's his name?
Blade Runner, yeah.
Blade Runner, wow. Anyway.
His name is Zaid, I think.
Zaid, okay. So we're addressing by Zaid. They're relatively new, no?
Yeah.
They're new faces, isn't it?
They're new faces.
And I've never known to have any prominent Shia faces and characters in Speaker's Corner. It's always dominated by a particular demographic of Muslims. Is that changing now? And how do you feel about that?
I think that's it's good to have representation and stuff like that. At the end of the day, there's always going to be priorities in Dawah, right? And that's what there's something called fiqh al-awlawiyat, you know, the jurisprudence of priorities, if you like. And so long as every Muslim that goes to Speaker's Corner knows how to navigate that and realize that it's not maybe the time to talk about certain differences. Maybe we can from time to time, but that there are priorities in what we need to kind of to do in Speaker's Corner. What kind of lesson plans we should present, if you like, you know. So if people don't know about that and they don't have hikmah to that degree where they're, okay, this is for the social and community benefit, then maybe they shouldn't come. Whatever sect or whatever, I shouldn't say sect, whatever grouping they come from, whatever.
Have you often encountered that issue where people are not aligned with the greater shared benefit? Yes,
we've had that with the groups, for example, the groups that follow, you know, Sheikh Rabia al-Madkhali and things like that.
That's kind of expected, unfortunately.
Yeah, so those individuals, we used to have a cordial relationship with them, and we still do. We try and keep good relationships. with people like Shamsi, for example, in the park, and others like that, who do a great job when it comes to conversion of people into Islam. And he's actually one of the most knowledgeable people in the park when it comes to Islamic knowledge. So, however, you know, the issue of sectarianism and the issue of and it's for me, it's problematic because according to what's happened now, I'll be honest with you, I'll be open about this, is that there's been labeling and tabdi'ah being made.
So basically calling each other mubtadi, bid'ah, al-bid'ah, deviants, ikhwani, all the usual labels. The labels are coming out.
Yeah, but at the same time, but we get those things being said, but at the same time, the same individuals will say you're not allowed to debate al-bid'ah, but they do that every week. You know, so it's a bit of a contradiction in my opinion.
Have you raised this issue with the relevant individuals?
Well, they are the ones who raised it with me. One time I was talking to a Shiite, and one of those individuals came and said, well, you know, you're not allowed to debate al-bid'ah.
I swear I've seen that person engage in debate.
Yeah, and those individuals debate Shia not every single week, but and then they debate people that they call Khawarij debate. So for me, these are the issues, right? And the question is, why are you doing this?
That sounds like an unnecessary stumbling block, an obstacle, by the sounds of it.
I'll be honest with you. This is a very good point. I'm happy you've raised it actually, because we haven't made our differences with certain groups ambiguous, right? We've made clear that, you know, for example, we have different, from my perspective, that I'm not Shiite, for example, and that the Ithna Ashara Creed, the 12th Creed, is not something which we agree with, right?
Of course.
And so on. I'm giving one example of many, right? I don't want to go into too many details, but the point I'm making is, at the same time, you know, those individuals, to be completely honest with you, bro, they might disagree with, like Shias might disagree with us, yeah? They disagree with us and we would disagree with them, yeah? In terms of creed. And there's no doubt about that. And we shouldn't pretend to be like, believe in the same thing.
Yeah, of course.
However, when it comes to Dawah, wallahi, I think they have a higher degree of
decorum.
Decorum and understanding and wisdom than those individuals that follow Shaykh Rabi'a.
Yeah, you know what? You know, inshallah.
Because those individuals that follow Shaykh Rabi'a, they will question you as an individual, and they will question, and it's not all the individuals but those in the park that I've encountered. There will be a roadblock and a stumbling block for the Dawah itself. You know, so you're attacking the Dawah now, right? So in my opinion, I think that is a real problem, you know, where we need to be able to navigate our differences. And that's one of the issues, actually.
I mean, I have my own views with regards to those of that particular mindset and even their historical roots, right? And unfortunately, for those who've even had a cursory reading of some of the asl roots of this movement and the really core of it, you'll find that unfortunately this is something which is actually sometimes they're even proud of. They're proud of the outright labeling. And the divisiveness. Look, every Jama'ah and every group has an element of safe sect mentality. Right. Generally speaking, most Jama'ah, most movements do. But with these particular brothers and even sisters of that particular mindset, it's very amplified. And it's something that they're actually very proud of.
I think in history, they refer to it as the narcissism of small difference.
Yes.
And this is interesting in the philosophy of, in the history of religion, right? But for me, I think the issue has been that I've actually tried to speak to these individuals, meet those individuals, you know, for example, Abu Khadija is well known, you know, among those people. And I said, let me come and see you in Birmingham. Let's talk about it. Because he produced a PDF. For example, in that PDF, he had written some things about me. And in that PDF, for example, he wrote that, you know, his misguided caller to innovation. That's how he referred to me. Right? So this is tabdi'ah, right?
Are they still doing this?
Little PDF, and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, wait, hold on. This individual, I really wanted to investigate who he was, because before I knew of him, but I didn't know much about him. So I actually found something online about this individual, which he literally was talking about himself. And he said, you know, someone was asking him, what qualifications have you got or something like that? Because tabdi'ah is something for the scholars, I mean.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
It's not for the layman.
Yeah, and he's doing it of me. So I thought, I wonder what his qualifications were, what level. He must be, you know, very... So from what I heard from his own voice, he said, I studied Usul al-Thalatha, which is a 2-page document.
Yeah.
Al-Qawaid al-Arba'a, which again is a 2-page document. Al-Aqidah al-Raziyayn, which is literally a 2-page document. Usul Ahmad, which is maybe 5-page, 10-page, 20-page, whatever it is.
None of which certainly qualifies you.
And then he said he studied Bulugh al-Maram, which is the only significant text.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, you haven't even. This is your level of qualification, and now you can pronounce tabdi'ah. Some people attack him and say he doesn't know how to read the Quran even. I'm not going down these routes. I'm not saying that. I don't know how he can read the Quran if he knows the Arabic language. But the point is, according to himself, this is his level, which is this is actually a basic level, right? It's not even a basic level. This is okay. This is what you can do this in one day, and this is no exaggeration. You can read those books in one day. Maybe it will take 1 week, 1 month for you to learn those things more in depth. Bulugh al-Maram will take a lot more time than that, to be fair. But apart from that, I mean, are you now the guy that's going to tell me that I'm a misguided person of innovation? So what's inspiring that? And my question, I'm going to be straightforward with him, with the viewers. What's inspiring such a person to make such a comment?
Let me be very brutally honest,
Akhi
Muhammad, Unfortunately, you'll find the roots of this mindset going back to the very first armed rebellion against Dawlat al-Uthmaniyya, right? That very mindset which made the blood and the honor of the Muslims halal to take. You'll find the roots of that, the violent manifestation of that mindset then. The same individual that you've mentioned, that same mindset is killing innocent people in Libya, is justifying the killing of innocent people in Yemen. And quite frankly, I will even go as far as to say that they are the other side of the coin of ISIS. Yeah? And I know I am not tarnishing the entire Salafi movement, of which there are some very celebrated and fantastic ulama and du'at and groups.
People that we adore.
The people that we adore and respect, and we pray for their preservation, right? And we know that even the whole Salafi umbrella is a very broad movement now. Yeah, loads of diversity and spectrums of that. But that particular mindset, is like the first cousin of ISIS, right? And they've got historical roots in how they justified the killing of Muslim women, enslaving them and taking their property and killing their menfolk, all dating all the way back to the 18th century.
I want to make a comment on that. I think there's two main figures that when we talk about the Athari creed or the Salafi creed or even the Hanbali, right, madhab, that come to mind immediately. Which one of them is Ibn Taymiyya, died 728 AH, And
I'm not sure, I was talking about the Najd movement.
But I was going to say also now the second one is Ibn Abdul Wahhab, Muhammad Ibn Abdul Wahhab, died 1792, Miladi time, which is Gregorian calendar. So in terms of their approaches, from my study, this is what I've come to understand. With Ibn Taymiyya didn't have these views. I want to be clear about that, and I'll give you some evidences for that. Ibn Taymiyya had someone called Bakri at his time. Okay, and Bakri used to believe in istighatha, calling to say Muhammad and stuff like that, which Ibn Taymiyya and other places may have considered as an aslan, it might have considered it shirki or something like that, right? But he wrote a book called Ar-Raddu ala Bakri, and in this book he never made takfir of Bakri. And in fact, not only did he never make takfir of Bakri, but when Bakri was in trouble, he hid him in his house. Even though Bakri made takfir of Ibn Taymiyya, by the way.
Yes.
So Ibn Taymiyya was, though he is sometimes invoked in these discussions, it's important to clarify to the viewers, because a lot of them will be thinking, yes, Ibn Taymiyya. It's not Ibn Taymiyya.
No. I should admit that, Kay. His opinions and many of his stances are distinctly and starkly different to 100%. That of the Najd movement of the 18th century.
Ibn Abdul Wahhab now is a little bit different, because from what my studies, the question is, did he have Adhr bil-Jahl or not? This is the question about him in particular, Ibn Abdul Wahhab. Did he believe in Adhr bil-Jahl or not? And there's two opinions on that. Some scholars will say, because he said in one part of his Durr Saniyya, because these little books that we're talking about, Usul al-Thalatha, Qawaid al-Arba'a, and Kashf al-Shubuhat and Naqd al-Islam, which is what these which is what people read, and then they think that khalas, they have exhausted knowledge.
Of course.
Seriously, people read these books and think they have exhausted knowledge. But at any rate, when you read Durr al-Saniyya, which is like the main fatwa of not only Ibn Abdul Wahhab but those who came after him, there are some things with him where he says, you know, in kunna la nukaffiru man ya'budu as-sanam, you know, if we are not going to make takfir or excommunication of those who do abd of a sanam, or literally worship a statue,
yes,
then how about those individuals? So there are some things which we can take from his words, which maybe he does but other parts where he seems like he's not saying that.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say I know the answers to that and say, okay, he's this or he's that, but there are these two opinions of him. Those who came after him had different mindset completely.
Why not just deal with what actually took place historically?
Yes.
Yeah?
So that's those who came usually after him, his grandchildren.
So what actually did take place was that there was an armed rebellion against the Uthmani Khilafah, and a lot of the
treason.
It was treason, and a lot of the theological justification, the legal justification, was that the Uthmani Khulafa were not just deviants; they had apostated, right?
Yes. That's clearly if you look at Durr Saniyya, I mean, there's no, and anyone who tries to deny this, we can find them there.
No, there's references in abundance.
In abundance.
In abundance.
But just as long as we're making clear that this is not, we're not talking necessarily about Ibn Taymiyya, because that's someone that people invoke, and even Ibn Abdul Wahhab, there's a question mark around that. So we're talking about, because the Durr Saniyya is probably one of the best primary texts.
I'm talking about the roots of this mindset. The roots of this mindset goes back to them periods.
Yes, for sure.
So therefore, given that understanding and given the evolution of this movement and this thinking, and the fact that it still exists in the form of be it S pubs, be it Abu Khadija, be it the Madakhila.
Well, they do it in Tabdiya form.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But the point is, the way it manifests in the Muslim world can literally mean death.
It could do, yeah.
No, it has done.
Well, in Libya, you're saying Libya, isn't it?
Yeah, Libya and even in Yemen. Yeah. So I'm saying here, it's PDF refutations.
Right.
There is.
But in areas where there's rife,
and
there's fertile ground for violence, it's violence.
But it's the same justification.
But I just don't get it, because, you know, in Libya, as you know, if it's Khuruj al-Hakim, who's the Hakim?
Well, there's two Hakims at the moment. There's a dispute of
this is my question. And by the way, I accept the premise that we shouldn't do Khuruj al-Hakim al-Muslim. I agree with that. This is the Hanbali view. This is what I follow. We shouldn't do Khuruj al-Hakim al-Muslim. And also we agree with the premise that we don't want to start civil wars in different countries.
Of course.
And we don't want another Syria. We don't want another Syria. But I'm not saying, but having said that, we can't say that, you know, what happened to the Syrian people was in vain. These were shuhada.
Of course.
And of course there were deviant groups. There were criminal groups like ISIS that came out, right? And that's horrible. And those groups, not just ISIS, but those who are related to their kind of thought process, the criminals. But at the same time, this started off as a person who was not a Muslim. Bashar al-Assad was not a Muslim, right? He's an Alawi, and from our perspective, that's not Islam. And he was killing his people. You know, these people came out, and so al-khuruj alayhi is coming out against him is not the same as coming out against someone who at least have madahir al-Islam.
And let's keep in mind as well that the Ummah in Syria did not raise arms first. It became an issue of defending themselves for survival, to protect the women folk, their land and their property.
Absolutely.
When the regime turned the guns onto the unarmed protesters, that's when they had to resort. And you had defections from that. On the topic of wars and oppression and the state of the Muslim world, in your debate against David Wood, mashallah, you know, you dropped quite a heavy bar, and that was about the violence of European colonialism. It was a bit of a mic drop moment.
It was an epic moment.
It was an epic moment.
It did the rounds on social media.
It was a slam dunk. You know,
and the Muslim community enjoyed it.
Mel accepted it from
I enjoyed it myself.
You should.
It was a Hadouken of the highest kind. I don't know if I'm being biased because of my background as a journalist or my specific interests. And I hope I could speak on behalf of Aki as well in terms of kind of the Dawa and activism we've been raised with. Don't you think debating those issues is actually more practically important? Because where you may find yourself debating European and Enlightenment philosophies in isolation, just as a theoretical argument, there what you did against Wood there, you gave a practical manifestation of what those philosophies have and did, because a lot of the Enlightenment philosophies legitimized European colonialism.
Absolutely, I think
it was the moral and ideological.
It was the intellectual foundation.
It was the intellectual foundation of industrial scale murder.
That's right.
Don't you feel that debating these kind of things is more fruitful, where the awam, both Muslims and non-Muslims, can actually understand, hey man, these guys who we celebrate from a period which is celebrated in European history was actually the ideological premise of what we went and did to the rest of the world. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If I can add an angle to that, bro.
Yeah.
You know, the idea, the class plans that you have, and the purpose of the activity is to empower Muslims, to show them that, look, these are ideas that we have. They're accessible for you, and now you are empowered. I facilitated something. Go. Go and empower yourself and go spread the goodness of Islam. So when we're talking, the example that you gave, that these are the ideas that empowered who went on to become Western colonials.
Yes.
And do what they do, and even create a neo version of it being the situation in the Muslim world today. So if we're talking about empowering, these are ideas that empowered years of evil.
Whether it's the science of eugenics, whether it's the white man's burden, whatever you want it, utilitarianism, you'll find that these things were used to literally
cornerstone.
To kill, colonize, and loot. So what we're saying to you, Akhi Muhammad, is, do you think that there is relevance and importance in discussing that? Because you had a mic drop moment there. When I saw that, I was like, I feel that needs to be elaborated.
It was a highlight. It was a highlight, and it hit home, didn't it? It hit home with the opposition. That good point.
Whereas you,
he's right.
Whereas you and Andalusi taking out some atheists in Oxford University, whilst that's needed, sometimes people watching will feel, okay, well, how does that affect me as a Muslim in the 21st century, and how did it affect us historically? They missed that. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get it. So I think there's a need for both. I genuinely do. I think the thing is, when I've been traveling now and been looking at Muslim communities in different parts of the Western world, I've realized that, to be honest, one of the things that we need to reinstill faith in is confidence in the tradition.
Yes.
And obviously the usul of the deen, like the existence of God, we can't take stuff like that for granted. Some people leave Islam and become atheist. And so from that perspective, I thought, okay, we have to do this. I genuinely believe we can challenge any atheist on the face of the earth, right? And with enough preparation and with enough studies, we will be able to take them on, and we'll be able to show them their fallacies and their problems with their belief, or their lack of belief.
Is that an open invitation to every atheist on earth?
Not really, because I won't accept anyone. They've got to have some kind of If they want that one, you go to Speaker's Corner.
Now we have the answer to the first question.
I accept those guys, but you have to go to Speaker's Corner.
Okay.
For the laity, that's no problem. And even for people that are non-lay, I've written a book on this. We're going to consult, inshallah. So I want to be able to test my ideas with someone of a higher academic ability, right? To be honest, and I think with atheist debate, people can get lost because there's a lot of philosophy employed. There's a lot of discussion about so many different things.
Rewind. You just said someone of a high caliber.
Yeah.
But then someone like
higher caliber.
Yeah. But someone like Dawkins and Sam Harris, I wouldn't actually regard them. They're popular. But are they really
world famous? But
Richard Dawkins is not a philosopher.
Yeah.
And I was looking at his book.
And he's been gunned off by many of his peers.
He's finished. I think his book is not a philosophical.
But if you want to debate, would you debate him?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Oh, okay, come on.
So that's no longer about caliber. That's more to do with reach and profile, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by it as well, right?
The guy trying high caliber.
Yeah,
the guy could be one miskin bread.
He's multifaceted, So it could be someone who's washed up in their ideas, but certainly has
anyone who has an influence.
Okay.
Well, look, we have this. We want to show that this new atheism is coming up with arrogance and with confidence. And that's why a lot of people ask why, because I do come across as quite arrogant in my debates with some people, by the way, and I do it intentionally, by the way. And it's not with every person. Like with Edward Tabash, I wasn't like that because there's no reason for me to be.
Would you were?
With Wood like that, and this new debate, I was like,
that the new one you were as well.
And I did that completely. This was planned. I consulted people about it, and I knew this was going to be there's a method behind the madness. Some people say, why are you acting like that?
So the nonchalance and the belittlement is strategic. It's
the aggression.
100%. This is my thing, is if someone mocks Islam on their public profile, I'm going to humiliate them. That's what, it's actually an issue of faith for me, a theology.
This exists within our tradition.
Yes.
It's not something that's alien, by the way. Just
Yeah.
in case people thought
Yes.
that there is an absolute long tradition
Yes.
of belittling
It's pride for the religion.
disbelievers and the zindiqeen within our tradition.
Yeah, and those who attack us in that way. It's
Yes.
not jahr bil kufr, something
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah.
When you come out with kufr and whatever, I'm not talking about those individuals. I'm talking about those individuals who, two things. Number one, their rhetoric against Islam is, in my opinion, quite, derogatory, right? And number two, or if they've said something about Prophet Muhammad specifically, about his Arab or something like that, about dignity, I'm going to take you out, but I'm going to try and take you out. I'm basically going to try and go in there like Deontay Wilder. I'm not going to be Floyd Mayweather.
I'm going for it.
I'm going to go for it. It's as simple as that.
One come out with a split decision against Fury. Come on, you need more than that.
No, Deontay Wilder. Oh yeah, but I agree.
It's a draw one.
Pull out Tyson or Ali or something.
No, he's not looking for a draw. You know what I mean? He means he's going to
but
bronze bomb
with
man.
Deontay
Yeah.
Wilder, everyone knows he throws them helicopter punches.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's just- yeah.
So that's what I try and do with those guys. I just try and throw the helicopter punches, right? So the intellectual helicopter punch.
Yeah.
Some say, okay, that's quite. So I was seeing like recent debate with Oxford with the Cosmic Skeptic,
Yeah.
and the guy and some people were like, that was just bullying, and okay, no problem. What's that?
No.
You guys were doing that to us. You guys, the guy made a video about Muslim women, Somali Muslim women in bags, humiliating Muslim women, and so on. So what do you want me to be with him?
You're trying to make a dig and say, this ain't speaker's corners, mate.
No, how do you expect me to react to this guy?
No.
For me, I see it as an article of faith to actually give it to him in helicopter punch style, as intellectual as possible, but also as I'm not going to be, and the hadith is also, one could potentially, I'm not doing my own qiyas, but I did a bit of fatwa for this as well. I asked them, is it possible to show arrogance in a debate with someone who's an enemy?
Yeah.
Enemy to not only Islam but Muslims.
Yeah, an open enemy.
Their knowledge production is feeding into people being killed in Christchurch.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Their knowledge production, you are the intellectual base for someone like this guy who killed the people in Christchurch actually being inspired. You want me to be nice with them? No way. If you're someone like Edward Tabash, who has no record of that, he's an atheist and he will debate against religion, and you have no problem, you're not trying to create a knowledge production which is hostile towards Muslims, I'm going to be very respectful to you. In fact, I'll be more respectful to you than you're going to be respectful. I'm going to make sure to be more respectful to you than you are to me. But if you're part of knowledge production, that is going to mean for the eventual dehumanization and degradation and possible even extinction, or I won't say extinction.
You're contributing towards an oppressive machine.
Yeah, these
Right.
violent
We're
threats
not
are going to come from your
I'm
ideas.
not gonna be I'm gonna be arrogant.
Okay.
If it looks like arrogance, and do you know why it is arrogance? I'll say it goes to that. In the time of the Prophet there was wars and so on. Yeah, and one of the Sahaba were walking in an arrogant way, like literally with their chest out and moving. And the Prophet said that this is the most hated. Like this is a hated action, except for in the
Yeah.
So that's my
Okay, we get that. Now,
just in case anyone.
No, that's fine. Just let you
Context,
know. Just
yeah.
let you know, we're absolutely jiggy with that.
Yeah.
We get that because we know there's a time and place to pump up the chest and sometimes reciprocate.
But I really don't want to do that though.
Yeah.
Wallahi, like for example, this guy, Cosmic Skeptic. Yeah, I'd rather just be his friend. I'd rather just live on. But he started it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? وهم بدأوكم أول مرة. The Quran says they started it. Are you afraid of them?
Yeah.
And they started on you. So I didn't like. Okay, I'll make videos about atheism. I'll say why I don't believe atheism is correct. But I'm not going to make a video about atheists and humiliate them as an individual, as a so-called community of people. I'm not going to do that because I think that's costing the public discourse.
Bro, you don't engage in the dehumanization of atheists.
Of course,
No, I won't do
it's
that.
the idea. You tackle the idea, you address the idea.
Which then is to use to go and actually go and oppress Muslims.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and we're a minority group here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And moving on from that you kind of have different personas, man.
Yes.
You're a speaker's corner interlocutor. You call out Dina and her man.
So they're popular social media influencers.
Then you
Couples.
Then you're putting up these mad suits, which I'm sure you have to get them specially made for your size or something. So you got different
You were dressed for walima in the last debate.
Yeah,
mashallah, it's some beautiful time.
The point is that
But it wasn't long enough.
speakers.
Some guy sent me a picture of Fred Flintstone. You know how he's got his tie?
hanging like a bib.
If you get a picture of that,
Thumbnail.
But look, Speaker's Corner, YouTube, call out culture, as well as now more professional environments, right? How are you navigating through these different environments? And will you eventually settle with one?
I don't want to. I really don't. I don't want to settle with one. I've seen how professors look in universities, and they look aloof. They're aloof. They're not. They've got a lot of knowledge, but they don't have any practical. A lot of them, they do have a lot of influence through their books and scholarship. But in terms of interaction with the average man, a lot of them do not have that ability, and it's because they have remained aloof. And so I think that, I don't want to be like that. I always want to be with the people. I always want to be in the streets, literally, with the fear of being attacked or whatever in there, no problem. I haven't got an issue with that. So long as I can speak to people and I can, engage with individuals on a face-to-face basis, I think that's what the prophets did, and I would want to continue doing that.
Are you pursuing any further academia at the moment in these fields? What are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, so I've done my background in political philosophy. So I've done one
on a BA level.
On a BA level. So and then I did my master's degree in history, and then another master's.
If I may ask you, just come in, I'm curious, what period of history?
So no, this was like more 20th century. You could say this was modern history.
Okay.
Right, modern history.
Okay.
And then then I done a master's degree in Islamic studies, and from that I want to, because I started a PhD before, and I'm going to start again with a different question, because I had a question, but I've changed the question basically.
What is the question?
The question I had before was to do with the Israel-Arab conflict, and I actually started a PhD with that. But then I thought to myself, do I want to do that? And then I changed the question. So the question now is about, and this is something I really feel strongly about. The question I have now is to do with it's a comparison of liberal contractarianism and traditionalist Islam. We're using the case study of number 1, hudud, number 2, jihad, and number 3, women's rights, because I think that these three things are most important.
Major areas.
Yeah, major areas.
Like, if not the main 3 areas of contention and beef that Muslims face on a daily level, on an intellectual level, and on an everyday level.
Yeah. So in terms of that, what I want to do it, because in post-colonial studies, you kind of, I think you know about, because we were talking about before. Post-colonial studies has not been focused on. Because from my perspective, post-colonial studies should be done by the voiceless, if you like, or those who are representing.
Yeah, the progeny of the subjects, the colonial subjects.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try and do it using a post-colonial lens to the point of prescription. So in other words, my diagnostic will be using post-colonial theory, Orientalism, Edward Said's kind of thing, and then after that, from the point of prescription, then I'm not even going to make a prescription. It's just an analysis. So I'm not saying that, okay, this is how it ought to be in any way. I'm just making a comparison. You guys are saying this, but actually this. I'm not saying anything is better. I'm just saying this is what you're saying, but this is what you're professing in other. Look, this is how you're attacking Islam, but actually these conceivabilities, if you like, these potentialities are in these ideologies as well. So from an abstract perspective. Now that's from an abstract level. On an empirical level, then I have to go and do case studies and see on a material level how things have been implemented and so on. And that's the kind of chapterization I'm going to be doing with the PhD.
It's a project and a half.
Sounds deep.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to do something which would not have a solid material effect on the ground in terms of
absolutely,
in terms of what I'm doing and stuff like that.
No, just wrapping up on the podcast. Tell us about the book which you posted about on Facebook, Kalam Cosmological Arguments. What went on with this book? Talk us about it.
So part of when I was doing my master's degree in Islamic studies in SOAS, so this was the second one. So when I did that, I did one module which is absolutely brilliant module. It was called Arab Medieval Thought. And when I was doing that module, basically, I had my teacher there was going through basically many different things, including the arguments of God's existence, theodicy, and so on. And I already had the background knowledge of this, but then I was kind of, reintroduced to the classical books of the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya and the Atharis, and the Falasifa and stuff like that. And so what Kalam Cosmological Argument is, right? If someone reads a book like Divine Reality of Hamza Sources, this is a required pre-reading because it shows you what the arguments are for God's existence. Yeah, Kalam Cosmological Argument.
It's a required pre-reading of your book.
Yeah, I would. If you don't know anything about anything and you're going to go into my book, you're going to be lost because you're going to think, what's he talking about? If you have no background of philosophy at all, I can't say that I would recommend it to you in the first instance.
How about for someone who has a kind of cursory understanding of proof of creator?
Has dabbled in some literature.
Would they be able to navigate around your book?
I would still say they should
get that basic reading in.
The Divine Reality should be a pre-reading.
There you go, Hamza.
I wouldn't ever promote.
Nice little plug there.
I would never promote my book without promoting this book first. Only because I'm not. Honestly, it's not only because it should be. This is the base, right? These are the arguments. Hamza Sources has outlined them in the most systematic way possible and the most accessible, way more accessible than what I've written. Just to be clear, and it's much bigger. His book is 10 times the size of mine.
It is.
Right? So my book is simply a collection of essays. Yeah, and this essay, actually critique. So it's almost like a self-criticism, looking at all the points of contention that philosophers at that point had, that philosophers in this, like not this time, but in the Enlightenment period had, and also the holistic philosophers had. So in other words, one thing that I found we need to work on, which would be a good supplement to Hamza's work, is what about counter arguments?
Okay.
Right. So what about the argument for infinite regress, or the argument for contingency, or the argument for these are controversies. I'm not saying that Hamza did not deal with them in his book. He definitely did. But what I'm saying is that what that book attempts to do is go deeper into...
They require elaboration.
Yeah, deeper into what actual philosophers said about these things and kind of playing them off against each other. And then coming at the end of it, and this is important, with my final chapter is the strongest forms, which is literally what I think the strongest form of the argument is. And the reason why I think these are the strongest forms, people would have known because of the way I've kind of reasoned it before. So, and when people talk about Kalam Cosmological Argument, the last person who's written this, a book with that title, is William Lane Craig in 1979.
Okay.
But he wrote the Kalam Cosmological Argument. This is called Kalam Cosmological Argument.
Who is this guy?
So this guy is an apologist. He's a scholar of Christianity and also a comparative religionist, you could say. He's also a philosopher of religion. And he's engaged in many public debates. He's debated the big names of atheism, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and those individuals. And he's fascinated with the Kalam Cosmological Argument, but he's fascinated in particular with the Ghazali's form, which is in Al-Iqtisaf al-I'tiqad, one of his books, and also in Tahfat al-Falasifa. But so what I'm doing with that, the reason why I've called it Kalam Cosmological Arguments, is to number one show that there's more than one argument. It's not just that one, because right now in the discourse, because of the influence of William Lane Craig, people look at Kalam Cosmological Argument as one only argument that can be made in one way with 3 stages. Everything begins to exist as a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. It's not like that. There's many arguments. In fact, Ghazali himself made like 3 or 4 arguments in his book, and that was just one form. So some people think if you knock down this argument, you knock down theism. They actually think that. They think that, which is ironic and ridiculous. So what I do is I look at all the arguments, and at the end of it I actually give a small chapter on Ibn Taymiyya, because Ibn Taymiyya, as we said before, wallahi, and this goes back to what we were saying. Wallahi,
was he not anti-Kalam?
This is beautiful that you asked that question. Ibn Taymiyya was not anti-Kalam.
Okay. Why is there perception or misconception, as you would probably argue?
Because he criticized parts of it in Ad-Dar'u Ta'arib al-Aqli wal-Naql. He criticized the premise that everything he basically posited something called حوادث لا أول لها.
Okay.
حوادث لا أول لها is تسلسل, which literally means regression. He believed that it's conceivable to have something regressive, creation before creation before creation before, so long as it's coextensive with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His will. And there's some merit in that argument from a logical perspective. From a theological perspective, you could say it's, there's many ahadith, كان الله ولم يكن شيء معه, there was Allah and nothing with him, and وكان عرشه على الماء, so some say, and his arsh was on the water. So was there absolutely nothing there? Was the water there? Or there's discussion among the scholars on these issues. I'm not going into that. I'm going into the logical issue. So Ibn Taymiyya himself, you'll find this in his books like Ad-Dar'u Ta'arib al-Aqli wal-Naql, and Sharh al-Isfahaniyya, which is actually an Ash'ari book who does Sharh of it. And in that book, he actually mentions the points where he agrees with it and the points where he disagrees. He has a book called Huduth al-Alam, which is the beginning of the world. And Ibn Taymiyya is nothing like Ibn Abdul Wahhab, just to be very clear. Ibn Taymiyya is, and I want to make this very short, Ibn Abdul Wahhab is, I'm sorry to be, and this is not disrespectful, but it would not be a drop in the ocean to Ibn Taymiyya in terms of his contribution, because Ibn Taymiyya, he literally went into Manatiqa, he went into the books of the Mantiqiyin, he knew these arguments very well.
Look, his knowledge base of those who he disagreed with, the amount of time he spent in understanding the opinions and the positions and the evidences and the groundings of his interlocutors and those who disagreed with is well known, well documented.
But here's the point, to answer your question directly, in terms of Kalam Cosmological Argument, he agreed with the Ash'ari more than he disagreed with them. That's my view. Really he agreed with them. He agreed with them. He calls Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wajib al-wujud, which is the necessary existence. He says that everything yasmudu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says he actually has a tafsir of Surah Al-Ikhlas.
Very interesting.
And listen to what he says. He says the necessary existence is as-samad.
Wow.
Wajib al-wujud is samad.
Yeah.
And he does tafsir of it in that way. He does that in his Sharh al-Isfahaniyya. He does it in many different books, in fact. In Dar al-Ta'arbi al-Aqli wal-Naql, he praises some parts of the argument. The point is, Ibn Taymiyya is actually instrumental, and so is Al-Ghazali. So three people are focused on in the book: Ibn Sina, Avicenna, Al-Ghazali, and Ibn Taymiyya. And Al-Ghazali, his contribution is well known. Ibn Taymiyya, his contribution in this issue is not as well known or documented in the English works.
Some of the stuff that you just mentioned, I'll tell you quite frankly, I was unaware of it.
No, specifically,
there's a major misconception that Ibn Taymiyya rahimahullah was anti-kalam, period.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
No.
It depends on what you're talking about when you say kalam. So there were some parts of the argument. Well, when you talk about kalam as a fen, as something to do, he was anti the process of trying to do that because he believes in the fitra and all that. That's true. But in terms of the forms and the arguments, he assessed them, he cleaned them up according to the Quran and Sunnah, and he argued that the arguments are from the Quran. He argued, he said that this argument is a Quranic argument. Al-Hayy al-Qayyum. He used the word Qayyumiyyat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Qayyum. He says it's the same as him being Wajib al-Wujud. It's very similar. He said the same thing about him being a Samad.
So let me just ask you one last question. So the book, the Cosmological Arguments, right, or Kalam Cosmological Arguments. Would you then say this inclusion and this bringing into light Shaykh Ibn Taymiyya's positions on this, and that he was still upon the Quranic arguments, is actually a reflection of your background and and the tradition that you subscribe to? Absolutely.
But the thing is, I'm not shy to look at Ibn Taymiyya and say he might have been wrong in this point and this wrong, and just like I look at Al-Ghazali and do the same thing, because in Al-Mantiq and Al-Aqliyat, things which your mind, we're talking about things, not only creed, aqidah, but we're talking about issues which are, you could say, aqli maht, which are purely intellectual issues. Why does Ibn Taymiyya have to be 100% right? Why does it have to be right with حوادث لا أول لها تسلسل الأحداث? I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm not a theologian in that way.
The point for me is the fact that you've chosen to include him in your book.
Yes.
Is it an attempt by yourself to say that, hey, people from this particular background?
Yes.
I want to clarify something.
I want to also have something to say about this. Particular.
You thought you knew, but you didn't know.
And that it's not something that's necessarily dominated by the Ash'ari or the Maturidis.
It is dominated by
Ash'ari. But with the inclusion of Ibn Taymiyya, you're trying to say, no, there's also this as well.
It doesn't seem to be widespread.
Here's my view. Ibn Taymiyya is the most intellectual Hanbalite that ever lived. Obviously, in terms of intellectual contribution to Islam, he is number one. You can only say second to Ahmad himself. That was the only thing you could say he's second to. But even then, his contribution is higher than Ahmad's in certain areas where Ahmad didn't do it.
Which he lived in, right? The challenges that he had to face.
So, as a Hanbalite myself, I'm Hanbali. I follow the madhab of Imam Ahmad myself, right? Well, I try to at least. I'm not great at it. But as a Hanbalite myself, I was refreshed to see this. And, I'm very happy to see this. Did Sheikh Mohammed talk to me about that?
Yeah, we touched upon it.
I'm very weak in there. Just too late.
It's just the way he said it. Don't worry, Akhi, I'll try to stay from the Hanafi madhab, and it has its challenges as well.
We all have our madhab issues.
Yeah, I try. But what I mean is that he is that figure. He is that figure, really is. So it's not. Do you know what? He should be an inspiration to all Salafis, and in the sense that look what he did. I mean, you can't say, well, that was just exclusive to him. You can't say that. You can't make the argument. He did these things. How did he pursue knowledge? Did he pursue knowledge by locking himself in the room and reading a Sunnah and Barbahari's book? He didn't do that. Sorry, he didn't do that. This closed mind mentality, right, is going to lead the ummah to destruction, because what it will do is I'm not saying everyone should go and study philosophy, by the way, just to be clear, right? But what I'm saying at the same time is people should be at least introduced to basic ideas that we're talking about, liberalism, feminism and things like that, and so that they can protect themselves, like an antidote towards it. And Ibn Taymiyya, if he hadn't contributed, we would be in problems. And if we don't contribute today, and if our ulama don't contribute, then we're going to be in problems once again. So I think now we have challenges that Ibn Taymiyya didn't have in his time. Liberalism wasn't there at the time of Ibn Taymiyya, and neither was feminism.
New intellectual challenges
we have to deal with them.
Yeah.
It wasn't an institute.
Yeah. And you have to deal with them by using the language.
It wasn't a world order. Of course, part of a world order.
We're dealing with a ridiculous scale.
Yes.
Of ideological influence.
So where can people find the book?
It's on Amazon. I think it's a bestseller now in the atheist section. It's actually overtaken the what do you call it? The God delusion. I was like, do you know when that happened? I thought to myself, this is a bit crazy, because there's this, I didn't see many other Muslims writing, in the section. So I was surprised. So inshallah,
whereas our section has got many atheist writers in our section about theism,
about Prophet Muhammad, about these things. I'm thinking, why is it that they get to do this with us and we don't get to talk about things with them? And it's not even you'll find that probably atheists will use my arguments. Do you know, say, Mohammed Hijab said that, something about infinity, right? Because it's actually, I'm looking at the thing with the most critical eye possible. I'm looking at all of the follow, and then at the end of it, I come to the conclusion that this is the argument you're never going to be able to deal with. Basically, this is the argument that you're never going to be able to. As an atheist, you're going to always have a problem with this.
Yeah.
Just on a very, very last note, right? You have Baba Abdullah Andalusi,
yes,
and you have Hamza Zoltzis,
yes,
two brothers,
Sabur Ahmed as well.
Sabur Ahmed, of course.
Amran Hussain.
Yeah, of course. His mind just had to get it. But the kind of ustads of because they're teachers, yeah. Well, at least Hamza is that of Sabur and Imran anyway.
Yeah.
Are you?
Sabur himself, I would say that he's become thing in his field. Yeah. He's become the teacher.
Sabur Ahmed and Imran Hussain are two very dear brothers of ours. They're part of I-Era, and they've been engaged actively in the Dawah for many years.
Yeah. And Amran himself is a teacher now in his way.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. You're in close contact with the brothers?
100%, yeah. We share a lot of information.
And it's important to stay in touch with them, of course.
Oh, yeah. It's very, very important. And this is one thing that, you benefit from. Just speaking with them, even going to dinner with them and speaking, you pick something up. It could be a game changer. It really can. It's like these guys, they've done the research, and Abdullah can say something and say, whoa. I'm going to put this on my phone right away. Or Hamza can say something and say, okay, all right. Sabur can say something and say, whoa, all right. I know how to deal with this now. So it's a game changer. And it can say, one article of, one piece of information can change the game completely. And even Sabur, one time he was having a debate with Aaron Ra, which is a prominent atheist. And subhanAllah, he had a dream before he, on a very important topic, he had a dream. On the day before the debate or something like that, he had a dream, and he said someone was saying to him, talk to him about this. So sometimes even your dreams can have maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What was the portion?
Incredible.
What was the portion of dreams?
Was it 160? Is it 164th?
146.
146 of prophethood.
Yeah, 146.
Yeah.
There could be some positive inspiration in that regard.
Yeah.
Akhi, Wallah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Exactly.
Honestly.
But before you go, you know what's up next.
What's happened now?
I will offer you two things.
Yeah.
The third cannot be offered because we're fasting and it's Ramadan. So you have a choice. You either arm wrestle me we have a thumb war, and you don't seem like a thumb war man.
I'll do the arm wrestling because I've remained undefeated for that for 10 years, except for one person.
MashaAllah.
Except for
one person who beat me when I was 17.
Okay, because of how confidently you've said that.
I've had a draw though recently with some.
How did you draw an arm wrestle? Man, just get injured.
Okay, so let's just, you set a second challenge to me, didn't you? You said, let's see if I can last how long?
4 seconds.
I want you to time this. I want you to time this.
It's happening. Do you know what? I'd arm wrestle you, Hijab, but you know what it is? I arm wrestle Ali, innit?
I have to go on the floor, don't I? Is that look?
Okay, we can both go on the floor. You can both go on the floor. So you
can I hold on to
yes,
this?
yes, you can.
Like
you
in
can.
the...
So you can hold. So usually you have that, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Count it when you are ready.
So 4 seconds. Hijab's going 4 seconds.
So that's like the
That's a record. That's a record it's going for.
We're ready for this, yeah? Bismillah. 1, 2, 3.
You should do it 4 seconds.
Oh. 7.
Actually, you did really good.
MashaAllah. What do you expect?
Jeez!
He's a big brother.
You done really well, man. Honestly, that's very good.
No, stop it, that's it.
You did well. You did well. You lasted 7 seconds. 7.8. You should be.
I'm not used to being told that I done well. MashaAllah, that was
That was excellent, man. I was getting worried. I think if you put a bit more finger, I think you would have stopped me.
That was a wrist workout.
Yeah, it's good. Look. I didn't know what was going on. I just see.
I think did you let me win?
No. We were stuck there for like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
listen.
thought you let me win.
There was some resistance.
Come on now. I hope that was that level of arrogance that we were talking about earlier.
No.
Only joking. Akhi,
Jazakallah khair, man.
pleasure.
You too,
Hijab.
man.
Yeah, we're gonna have you
Assalamu
on again.
alaikum. It's been a pleasure, my brother.
All
You too, man.
all the plugs and all the channels, all the book links and everything will be on this video, inshallah. Check it out. And brothers and sisters, please support Salam in any shape or form, in any capacity, even if that means sharing their content. May Allah accept it from them. It's your brother Dilly Hussain. Until next time.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Blood Brothers Podcast, a 5 Pillars of Mad Monolith production.